What's up, guys? Doomwake here. Welcome to another video on the channel. As you can see, we are going to be going over the top 5 modern cards from Innistrad Crimson Vow. The set, I believe, releases tomorrow on Magic Online, so I will hopefully be getting to play with some of the cards that you are about to see, potentially. Before we continue, make sure to be smashing that like button. Let's see if we can try to get this video to 147 likes. I just picked a random number. So be sure to smash the like button. Let me know in the comment section below, did I miss anything? Any cards that stand out to you as potentially powerful in Modern? Remember, we're focusing specifically on Modern. So keep that in mind, and let me know, did I get the top 5 right? I'm actually going to throw you guys a couple of honorable mentions too, just cards that I wanted to shout out, wanted to make sure I got them in the video, even though they didn't crack the top 5, just wanted to, quick shout out to those cards, and yeah, so without any further ado, I guess let's get started with my first honorable mention. Alright, the first honorable mention that I have for you guys is going to be Chandra Dressed to Kill. This is the new 3-mana Planeswalker. It's got 3 abilities, comes in with 3 loyalty, +1 you can make a mana, deal a damage to a player Planeswalker. The middle ability is probably the most important here. +1, exile the top card of your library. If it's red, you may cast it this turn, so notably you can't hit lands off of it. And then -7, exile the top 5, you can cast red spells, you get an emblem with, cast this red spell, this emblem deals action which any target reactions number of amount of mana. Okay, so basically -7, do some stuff. The most important things here are, well, two important things about this. One, the fact that you can play it plus it add a mana and bolt something means that you get one of the mana back that you spent it. So in essence, it's kind of like a 2-mana Planeswalker. Obviously not quite like that, but it kind of will frequently play out like that, where you just plus it, play it plus it, make, bolt something, an attacker that was potentially going to kill it. You get to, then maybe they have another attacker that deals some damage to it, untap with it, a bunch of loyalty, then you could start drawing cards with it. So definitely a little bit of potential maybe in like those Obosh style mono red prowess decks, the deck that we just played on the channel yesterday. So I think there's potential here to be, in that prowess shell, if it's looking for another like 3-drop card advantage type card, that it's not going to kill anything. Like it doesn't have a removal spell built in like previous Chandras that you've seen, but additional mana especially helps with Obosh as well. So keep that in mind. Honorable mention number 1, Chandra Dressed to Kill. Honorable mention number 2, Voice of the Blessed. So this is white for a 2/2. Whenever you gain life, you put a counter on it, so akin to a Johnny's Pridemate, which is a card that people have tried in Modern previously. And then it kind of stacks up a little bit. So, and if it has 4 or more counters, it has Flying and Vigilance. If it has 10 or more counters, it has Indestructible. Now, I don't know how relevant those abilities are. I think the 4 counters might be a little bit, might be more relevant certainly than the 10 counters ability. But just worth noting here, there's 2 things that I like about this card. Okay, so first and foremost, with the Johnny's Pridemate, typically you would go a little bit crazy with it, and then your opponent would just start chump blocking it, right? They would just have some random 1/1s lying around. I like that if the game drags on and you get 4 counters on this thing, they can no longer chump block it. So that's the first thing I like about this. The second thing I like about this is it's white, which means it's a lot better when paired with Heliod Suncrowned. You'll remember a few months back, I think it was towards the beginning of this year, when there was a mono-white Heliod deck with like Heliod and Ballista, Luminarch Aspirant, trying to think of what else in the deck, Aether Vial, Skyclave Apparition, Ranger Captain of Eos, that kind of stuff. And I think that this card could potentially make that deck become a thing again. It also pairs really nicely with Skyclave Apparition. Luminarch Aspirant. Yeah, that's the one I meant to say. But you can just start putting counters on it with Aspirant, and it also really pairs nicely with Heliod, because Heliod also puts counters on it. So I think there could be something there. So just something to keep in mind. Honorable mention number 2, Voice of the Blessed. All right, honorable mention number 3, Thirst for Discovery. Now, I don't know whether or not this card's actually going to see any relevant constructed play, within Modern. I just wanted to note it here. People have tried to play Thirst for Knowledge before. I think my big issue with this card is its discard a basic land. I think if it was just discard any land, kind of like Compulsive Research, it would be a little bit better, because obviously people in Modern don't play as many basic plans. So that's kind of the issue with this card. But just worth noting, you know, if your control deck wants a card draw spell, maybe your mana base can't support Archmage's Charm. Maybe this is something you look into. But yeah, I don't know. Just worth noting. You know, it's an effect that people have tried to play in Modern before with Thirst for Knowledge. So just wanted to just remember that this card is around. All right, we are now entering the top 5. This is going to be number 5 on my list, Reckless Impulse. So it is red and a colorless. Exile the top 2 cards of your library until the end of your next turn. You may play those cards. You'll recall that text has very similar. It's very similar text to a card that people have played in Modern for quite some time, and that is Light Up the Stage. So I think between Chandra and Reckless Impulse, Prowess really got some new tools this set. Now, again, this is not quite as good as Light Up the Stage because you can't get the discounted mana on it. However, the Prowess deck really kind of wants to just churn through a bunch of cards, so I could definitely see your Prowess deck wanting to play 4 copies of Light Up the Stage and then maybe like 2 to 3 copies of this card. Maybe 4, but probably not 4. It's just something to keep in mind, you know, another sort of... that when you start stacking up those kinds of effects and you have a bunch of redundancy, that's what makes your deck more consistent. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. The one thing I will note about this, the fact that it costs red and a colorless is actually a really big downside. Obviously, the card would be much worse if it was just 2 in a red without the discount. But the fact that you can't play this alongside Obosh means that your companion pretty much has to be Gigantha, which is, you know, fine. I do think that Obosh is a little bit better than Gigantha, so if you wanted to play a companion, you have to choose between those two. But I do think that Reckless Impulse means that you probably will not want to play Obosh, but, you know, that the time will tell whether this card is actually good enough. But I do think that it is going to make a little bit of an impact in those Prowess decks and could potentially bring them back into the format. All right, we're coming into number 4 on the list, Headless Rider. So we have 2 in a black for a 3/1, and that says whenever it or another zombie creature you control dies, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Okay, so effects like this have been played in Modern before. You'll remember the humans deck that played Zathrid Necromancer, which was essentially the same card but for humans. Now, the thing about having this effect in zombies, you know, 3/1 versus 2/2 is a bit annoying because of Wrenn and 6. I will say that is a huge down. I'd much rather have this thing be a 2/2 because of Wrenn and 6. Lava Dart less so. There's not a ton of Lava Darts going around, but there's a lot of Wrenn and 6s. But the nice thing about putting this in the zombie tribe is you'll remember the zombie decks have a lot of natural sacrifice effects, like sacrifice outlets, like Carrion Feeder. Sometimes they play Greater Gargadon, and just more ways to sacrifice zombies. And this thing turning all of your zombies into what is essentially 2 sacrifice triggers, because you get, you know, the creature, you sacrifice the creature, and then you get the token back to sacrifice that as well. You can really stack up a lot of damage with stuff like Mayhem Devil, some people play Blood Artist. You could really go all in on like the Aristocrat style stuff with zombies, and I definitely think if there is a good zombie deck, which, remember, we tried playing zombies a little bit when the other Innistrad set came out, and it was okay. There was definitely some things that I liked about it. It was really missing kind of that oomph, and maybe this is what needed to kind of push it over the top. So I will be trying some zombie decks with this card over the next probably, you know, couple weeks or so. But yeah, I think that this, you know, in those like those big sacrifice heavy zombie decks, I really think this could have the potential to put those decks back onto the map again. So number 4, Headless Rider. All right, coming in at number 3, we have Inspired Idea. This is 2 in a blue sorcery. Draw 3 cards, so it has Cleave for 3 blue. For those of you who don't know what Cleave does, if you pay an extra mana cost, you can remove the text on the card that's in brackets. So 2 in a blue, draw 3 cards, and then brackets, your maximum hand size is reduced by 3 for the rest of the game. Akin to a card that people have tried to play in combo decks in the past, which is Ideas Unbound. The nice thing about this is it's a lot more splashable. Now, I don't know if there's a combo deck in Modern. I don't know if there's a combo deck that wants this card, but it's just nice to point out that 2 in a blue, draw 3 cards. You don't see that very often. Now, obviously, there's the, your maximum hand size reduced by 3, so you have to either find a way to, like, kill them the turn that you play it, which would be a combo deck, or find a deck that dumps its hand as fast as possible, something like Affinity. I would probably assume that this is better off in a combo deck because Affinity already has Thought Monitor and Thoughtcast, which I think are probably both better than this card in the Affinity deck. So you probably need to do something combo type. Whether that's Storm, people have tried Song of Creation. I don't really think you want to put this in a spell-based combo deck, like like something like Storm. You don't want to put this in, Ad Nauseam or Inverter of Truth. You want to put this in a deck that's casting a lot of spells, because that's where those decks run into problem. It's just not having enough gas. So if I think this could be something you might want to include in Storm, just to kind of gas you back up, because those decks have a decent number of rituals and cost reducers. So I don't think they're choked on mana that often. But something to keep in mind, if there is a combo deck. That combo deck will probably want this card. Inspired Idea, number 3. Coming in at number 2, we have Wandering Mind, which is 1 blue-red, 2/1 flyer. Enters the battlefield. Look at the top 6 cards of your library. That's a lot of cards. You may reveal a non-creature, non-land, put it into your hand, put the rest on your bottom in a random order. Now, pretty innocuous, but there's two, well, I guess there's one really, really big number on this card that you want to look at, and that's 6. Getting to look at 6 cards is pretty nuts. Now, you'll remember one of the more popular decks in Modern right now is the 4-color Blink deck, which currently plays Eternal Witness to sort of like loop Furies and stuff like that. Get back Fury, Ephemerate the Witness, get back Time Warp, that kind of stuff. I think this card could actually find a home in that deck. It's really nice to ephemerate this when you get to, like, ephemerate this, dig 6 for a Planeswalker, upkeep, ephemerate again, dig another 6. That's looking at 12 cards, which over the course of the 2 ephemerate cast is pretty huge. So I don't know if it's going to replace Eternal Witness, but I definitely think that this card will see play in that deck in some number. I don't know how many copies, probably not a ton, but it's just another thing. And I remember Canister talking about this. He was short on ways to make Ephemerate good. Like, you have the Elementals and Witness, but other than that, there's not really much else. So I definitely think this card could find a home in that deck. And there is a downside. It doesn't find Solitude or Fury, which is a big issue because those are the more important cards to find early on in the game. But the fact that you get to look at 6 cards, I really do think that this card has the potential and is really powerful with Ephemerate. So that's why it's going to be number 2 on my list. Now, what do you guys think is number 1? Let me know in the comments. You'll see in just a second. Alright, for anybody who's been following this channel for the past couple of months, I'm sure you're not surprised to see this card at number 1. We have Blood Fountain. So, let me read this to you. It's a lot. It's a banger. Black mana artifact. Enters the battlefield. Make a blood token. For those of you who don't know what blood token, it is a artifact with 1 tap, discard a card, sacrifice this artifact, draw a card. So Rummage. And then you pay 3 to black, tap, sacrifice it, return up to 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. Now, this card is awesome. And I think this might single-handedly bring back the Asmo archetype. There's a couple things about this card that I want to mention. So first and foremost, it's 1 mana artifact that creates a second artifact. So it's 1 mana for 2 artifacts. The only other card that has that type of effect in this deck is Underworld Cookbook. So it's effectively, when you're looking at cards like Thought Monitor, Emery, and Urza, you really want to put as many game objects onto the battlefield early on as possible. So previously you were doing that with Cookbook, and Cookbook is part of your best draws that involve Urza and Emery and Thought Monitor. And this is just more copies of that. So it's really nice to be able to put 2 artifacts into play for 1 mana when you're playing with Emery. The blood token that you get off of Blood Fountain is a discard outlet to help you cast Asmo if you don't already have a discard outlet, which is awesome. So now you have Blood Fountain and Cookbook as 1 mana ways to have a discard outlet for Asmo, in addition to Straight Wraith if you also wanted to play that. I don't know if you have to because you have Blood Fountain now. And again, so we have a 1 mana card that turns on Emery by itself, turns on Asmo by itself, helps discount Thought Monitor for 2, is really powerful with Urza, and last but not least, the flavor text on the card, 3 and a black tap, sack, return 2 target creature cards, is awesome when you're playing with Emery, so you can mill over Urza's monitors. People usually have to kill your Asmos so you can rebuy Asmos later on in the game, which you already kind of did with Cookbook, right? You would play a little bit of a later game where you start recurring Urzas and Asmos with Cookbook, but this is just, again, more copies of that. It's more redundancy. So it's like you're taking all of the best elements of the deck and you're just adding more copies of both of those while only taking up 4 deck spots. I could go on for hours and hours about why I think this card is amazing. I cannot wait to play Asmo decks with this card, and I will certainly be uploading a video once the card is legal. I don't want to keep you guys here for the next 3 hours while I just gush about Blood Fountain, but I absolutely love this card, and I think it is going to it's going to bring Asmo back. Let me just say that. All right, and that's going to do it for our Innistrad Crimson Vow top 5/honorable mentions. Let me know what I got right. Let me know what I got wrong. Let me know what your favorite card from the set is in Modern, or, I mean, in any format. We could talk about any format. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content, and I will see you in the next one.